Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Wake Up Workday morning show. I am your host, Tony Gilfillan, and let's get into it. So, a few things that I found pretty interesting today. Google announced it is going to be releasing the AI glasses next year. So, with Gemini 3 kind of taking the AI world by storm, I think this is a good pairing to their whole AI platform, giving that AI assistant right into your your actual face. They had that Google Glass pilot many years ago that kind of failed, but again, AI was in a much different place back then. And in the gaming world, Elder Scrolls V is being released yet again for the 13th time on Switch 2. Oh man, I just thought that was hilarious that yet another Skyrim edition has been released. And we are officially 1 week out from the season 2 of the Fallout series on Amazon Prime. And I also saw while doing here, I got influenced to click on one of these ads. They have created a basically a complete replica of the Pip Boy from Fallout. Pretty interesting. $300 though. It is literally just a screen that cycles through a bunch of made up information from the game. Could make a pretty interesting Halloween costume, but don't think I'm gonna be dropping $300 for this one. Hey Mark, welcome to the stream. I am just going over some interesting things that I saw today. This Fallout replica, pretty ridiculous price, but looks pretty authentic. I watched a few minutes of this video of them going through it. It is all metal die cast and everything, so definitely very high quality, but still just a prop. All right. So yesterday we did some fun stuff with our app that we were playing with. I am building an email digest for new customers. So essentially, when a new customer is created, it gets pushed into our app, and then we'll then be able to use our third-party service that we created that's calling Claude to generate some emails, and those emails will get sent out on a regular basis. But I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Um, Essentially, I've been playing around with some fun stuff around learning. So I am a very curious person. I like playing around with all these AI tools. If you've watched this stream before, you'll notice I use Claude and Gemini and Cursor and all the fun AI tools that are out there to speed things up in any way I can really find to do it. But prompt engineering is one area that I feel like most people just kind of use it like a Google. Like go in there and just Google something and it will give you information back. But I feel like prompt engineering will really make your prompts into these AI tools a lot more effective. And having those tips and tricks and how AI actually responds to those prompts is really important to know. And there's another way that I've been learning as of recent that I found super helpful, and that is actually using the deep learning on any of these. So a lot of these AIs have a deep learning model. For Claude, it's the Opus model. I'm pretty sure the ChatGPT one is literally called deep learning. I'm sure Gemini has one too that it does, a little bit longer thinking and gives you more of a baked answer. So I did one on this particular topic on prompt engineering. It gave me this big long research paper on all of it. I cycled through this a little bit and it does seem pretty legit as far as the information that's coming out of it. But one thing you can do with these, instead of reading a big wall of text, you can grab this information and dump it into another LLM. If you guys are not familiar, Notebook LLM, which is another Google product, can do some pretty cool stuff with a lot of different sources. So if you dump a bunch of sources into this, or even just a research paper, aka the one I generated from Claude, then it can turn it into some cool stuff. And one of them is actually a podcast. So that's a little bit something we're going to be doing different today is we're going to listen to that podcast, and then you can actually join into the podcast while it's going on, which is pretty cool. So you can jump in, chime in, ask a different question, and it'll actually start responding to you. And the voices don't sound terrible anymore. Like, it's not that silly AI cadence that it used to. It's actually pretty good. So let's go ahead and listen to this. So what I did here, again, uh, Notebook LLM, you can dump in a bunch of sources and tell it to do different things like any other LLM. But then you also have this studio section over on the right here. You can have it create flashcards and infographics and quizzes and stuff off of the sources that you dump into your notebooks. But the one that I used was this audio overview. So it creates basically an AI podcast. The one that generated today is about 15 minutes long. So we'll actually have a little bit of time after that before I end the stream. So let's click this. You can hit play, or there's also this interactive mode. And we're going to do that. So it gives us this join button. So I can essentially chime in to the podcast while it's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and click play, and we're going to listen to a podcast and learn how to do some prompt engineering.
Stack of articles, technical docs, you name it, and boil it all down.
Sounds like the audio is not quite coming through here. One sec, guys.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a huge stack of research articles, technical docs, you name it, and boil it all down to what you actually need to know.
And today we are jumping into a skill that really is starting to define modern efficiency.
Absolutely. We're talking about prompt engineering. If you use any kind of generative AI for coding, for writing, for anything, this is how you get the most out of it. It's about maximizing your output and, frankly, accelerating how fast you can learn.
It really is. It's so much more than just, knowing what to ask. It's all about the how. It's a craft.
A craft, I like that.
Yeah, we're working from Anthropic's definition here, which is perfect. They call it the craft of structuring instructions to get better outputs from AI models. So it means you're moving past simple questions and getting into specific phrasing, giving the right context, and really guiding the model's behavior.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Why is this suddenly a required professional skill? I mean, it used to just be typing a question. Right?
Because the thing is, between a vague instruction and a really well-crafted prompt, it's a massive efficiency gap.
A huge gap. A bad prompt gives you something generic, something you can't use. Then you're stuck iterating 5, 10, maybe 15 times.
Exactly. Whereas a great prompt, it gets you what you need in one shot. And that inefficiency, it hits the bottom line immediately. This is a C-suite issue now.
Right.
There's some Dexter Labs research that really highlights the problem. It found that, 72% of companies are using AI tools, but a staggering 74% of them are struggling to get real scalable value from them.
So they have the car, but they don't know how to drive it properly.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it's why the market for this skill is just exploding. It's projected to go from around $280 million this year to, get this, $2.5 billion by 2032.
Wow. That tells you where the smart money's going. And for you listening, the benefits are all about efficiency. It's about precision.
You get way better accuracy in the output. You save a ton of time. And this is key. You actually cut costs.
Let's talk about that for a second. The token economy.
Exactly. Efficient prompts use fewer tokens, which means less money spent on that back and forth. It all just leads to better outcomes, whether you're debugging code or writing a big report.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the foundation?
It's the one thing every single major AI provider agrees on, no matter the model. Clarity is king.
But clarity isn't just, writing in plain English. What does that mean in a structured way?
Right. It's a very specific kind of clarity. We've distilled it down to 3 key things. First, use extremely specific language, no ambiguity, leave 0 room for the model to misinterpret.
Okay.
Second, always include constraints and boundaries. Tell it what the output should not contain. And third, and this is the one people miss all the time, specify the format, the length of the style you want, right up front.
The power of constraints. That's huge. You can really see it if you contrast a vague prompt like write a report with something super specific.
Yeah, give us an example.
Like create a 3-section report on Q4 sales. I need an executive summary, key findings, and recommendations. Target it to non-technical executives, use a business casual style, and here's the constraint format, the findings using numbered bullet points only.
See, you just made the model's job 90% easier. You've dramatically reduced its degrees of freedom. It's not guessing anymore. It's executing a plan.
Right. And building on that structure, the next big thing is Role and persona prompting.
Ah, yes, the fun one.
We all love telling the AI, act like a witty copywriter, or you are a senior analyst. But how specific do we actually need to be for it to make a difference?
So the research shows it's a bit mixed. For purely factual stuff, like what's the capital of Nebraska, a role doesn't really improve accuracy. But for creative tasks, subjective tasks, anything where style and perspective matter, it's incredibly effective.
And the key is detail.
Detail, detail, detail. A generic role is almost useless. If you just say, you are a developer, the model's just pulling from its general knowledge.
You have to set the bar for its expertise.
Precisely. You need to be way more specific. Like, you are a senior Python developer with 10 years in data engineering. You specialize in low latency ETL pipelines, pandas and NumPy, and you're dedicated to production ready code with full doc strings.
That level of detail grounds it. Okay, so that's a temporary role. How is that different from a system prompt? They sound similar.
That's a really crucial distinction. If role prompting is like an actor wearing a costume for one scene, the system prompt is, it's the director's notes for the entire play.
Ah,
A system prompt is a persistent instruction that defines the model's overall role, its capabilities, its boundaries for the entire session. It's the it doesn't change from one query to the next.
okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Let's move into the techniques that force more complex thinking. We have to talk about chain of thought, or CAT prompting.
This was the game changer, that seminal Google Brain paper from 2022. It's fascinating because it doesn't just ask for an answer, it actually changes how the model processes the request.
How so?
You prompt the model to show its reasoning step by step. You're forcing it to show its work, just like in a math test. It has to externalize the logic it's using.
So it's like a cognitive hack for the AI. You're forcing it to slow down and think. What's the actual impact of that?
It's striking, especially for numerical and complex reasoning. Kuti improved accuracy by up to 30% on tough math benchmarks like GSM-8K. But here's the key. It works best on the biggest, most powerful models. We're talking 100 billion parameters or more.
Because they have the reasoning capacity to actually benefit from it.
Exactly.
So for our listeners, what are the variations beyond just typing, let's think step by step?
Well, that's called zero-shot Kuti, simple and effective. Then you have few-shot Kuti, where you give it examples of the reasoning process. But the real cutting-edge version is called step-back prompting.
Step back.
Yeah, it involves first asking the model a more abstract, high-level question related to your specific query. You force it to establish the core principles before it tackles the details.
Okay, give me an example of how that works.
Let's say you need optimization tips for a slow e-commerce checkout. A standard Coty prompt would just start listing solutions. A step-back prompt would first ask, what are the 3 core psychological factors that influence user trust during an online checkout?
Ah, I see. You establish the why before the how.
Exactly. And once the model generates that conceptual foundation, then you give it your specific problem. This approach has outperformed standard Coty by up to 36% in some tests. It pulls the model out of the weeds and grounds it in first principles.
That's a huge leverage point. Okay, so if Coty is about showing the steps, few-shot prompting is about showing a pattern with examples.
Precisely. And it's vital when you need the output to follow a very specific, maybe non-obvious pattern or style.
What are the best practices there?
Anthropic has great documentation on this. You want to provide 3 to 5 diverse examples right in the prompt. Make sure you cover edge cases, the messy, difficult inputs, and ideally include both positive examples of what to do and negative examples of what not to do.
You're really drawing clear lines for the AI. And speaking of clear lines, let's talk about using XML tags for structure. This was fascinating, especially for Claude models.
It's an essential technique for making things machine-leadable. By using tags like instructions or context, you create these clear, delimited boundaries.
It's not just for looks, then.
Not at all. It drastically reduces the chance that the model gets confused about what's an instruction and what's source material. It improves accuracy, and practically speaking, it makes it so much easier to extract structured data, like JSON, on the other end.
Okay, now we have to tackle the elephant in the room. Hallucinations. The AI is getting more accurate, but when it's wrong, it can be wrong with such confidence. What tools do we have to fight that?
We have to prioritize verifiable accuracy. And there are some really structured techniques for this. The first and simplest is what's called according to prompting.
Okay,
Research from Johns Hopkins showed that by directing the model to ground its response in a specific source, like, according to the transcript I provided, what was the CEO's 4th point, you can improve factuality by up to 20%.
that's a powerful defense just from simple phrasing. What about internally, inside the model's own process?
That brings us to chain of verification, or COVE. This is basically a self-correction loop. First, the model generates an answer. Second, it creates a list of questions to verify that answer.
So it's checking its own work.
Exactly. Third, it answers those questions. Fourth, it compares the answers to its original output, flags any problems, and then gives you the final verified response. It forces the model to be its own fact checker.
That is incredible. A structured self-review. Building on that multi-step idea, let's talk about prompt chaining.
Yeah, prompt chaining is indispensable for big, complex tasks. Things that are just too much for one prompt, like writing a 5,000-word paper. You break the task into sequential, focused prompts. The output of step 1 becomes the input for step 2.
Can you walk us through a quick example?
Sure, think content creation. Prompt 1. Generate a detailed, numbered outline for a 5,000-word white paper on advanced prompt engineering. You get a clean, structured outline.
Got it.
Prompt 2 then says, now expand section 2.1 from that outline, focusing on chain of verification, and make the tone academic but accessible. This keeps the model focused on one manageable chunk at a time.
It stops it from getting overwhelmed. And one last little trick, pre-filling responses.
Oh yeah, this is so useful for reliable data extraction. If you need a very specific format, like a JSON object, you can actually start the model's response for it. Your prompt ends, and you just start the model's part with an open curly brace.
And that nudge forces it to continue in the right syntax.
It makes it much easier for your code to parse the result without errors. It's a subtle but powerful trick.
Okay, so what does this all mean for someone working across different tools? We need to match the technique to the right model.
Absolutely. Model selection isn't about finding the best one anymore. It's about the best for the task. The trade-offs are real.
So let's run through the benchmarks. For complex coding, who's the leader?
For anything involving deep code-based understanding, multi-file changes, Claude 4, either Sonnet or Opus, is the top choice. It leads the SWE bench at 72.7% accuracy. That said, Gemini 2.5 Pro or Flash is often called the best value choice. Great performance, lower cost.
What about for creative work? Writing, capturing a specific voice.
Claude still generally has the edge for natural conversational style. It's really good at capturing a nuanced personal voice. But GPT-4o is still the most versatile, all-around workhorse. It's excellent across almost every domain.
And mathematically reasoning, where Code Team made those huge gains.
For pure internal reasoning, no external tools, Gemini 2.5 Pro is currently superior. It hits 86.7% on the AI IME benchmark. It just has incredible internal numerical logic.
But
If you let the model use code execution tools, which is how most real-world math problems are solved anyway, GPT-4o jumps to 98-99% accuracy, so it's a choice. Do you need raw internal logic or the right answer with verifiable calculation?
a crucial distinction. Finally, long context. The ability to process huge documents. Who's winning that race?
This is a massive differentiator. Gemini 2.5 Pro is the current leader with a 1 million token context window. It's just an enormous amount of information. Claude offers 200,000 tokens, which is still huge, and it's known for being very coherent over long conversations. GPT-4o is at 128,000.
Let's bring this all back to practical logistics. We said tokens are the currency. How do we manage that currency well?
You really have to understand the economics. The key thing to remember is that tokens are input and output. And the entire conversation history is usually resent with every new message. So long chats get expensive fast.
So even with a 1 million token window, you need to be smart about it. What are the strategies?
3 main ones. First, summarize previous context. Instead of resending 50 pages of text, have the model summarize the key points and feed that into the next prompt. Second, use prompt chaining to break tasks into smaller chunks. And third, remember recency bias.
Meaning,
Models tend to pay more attention to information at the very beginning and very end of a prompt. So put your most critical instructions in those spots.
it's all really boils down to discipline. So to wrap this up, what are the universal principles everyone should take away?
The mindset has to be specific, be explicit, provide structured context, and always specify the output format you need. But the most important principle is just iterate and refine.
Right. Your first prompt is almost never your best one.
Never. The sources are unanimous on that. You have to start basic, evaluate the output, see what's missing. Is it the tone, the structure, and then refine that one specific thing. Repeat until you get that perfect single-shot result.
Prompt engineering is the feedback loop.
Exactly. And this isn't theoretical. It's the essential skill that unlocks the power of these tools. It pays dividends in every single interaction you have with an AI.
All right, so a quick recap for you. The learner first, clarity is king, always. Second, match your technique to your task. Use chain of thought for reasoning, few-shot examples for patterns, and third, choose your models wisely. Claude for complex code, Gemini for huge documents and math, and GPT-4o for all-around versatility.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. We know models like Gemini 2.5 Pro can handle a million tokens. We've talked about techniques like prompt chaining and verification to manage extreme complexity. So, what happens when you use these methods to process an entire book or an entire archive of your company's internal research in one go? What new instantaneous insights could that kind of knowledge base unlock for your field?
All right. Well, that was pretty interesting. I got a couple things out of that that I did not know before. The chain of thought prompting, asking those groundwork questions before you actually get into what you're trying to get out of the model is very interesting. And this is actually coming from Claude, and I thought it was pretty telling that it still gave Gemini the win on several different places that I feel like Claude used to be the winner in. And it wasn't even using the Gemini 3 for its reference. It was using Gemini 2.5. So I feel like Gemini could win in a lot of different places, even there. Claude, in my opinion, is still the king for coding. And I rarely use ChatGPT at this point, to be honest. I feel like Gemini and Claude have kind of stepped ahead in a lot of places, especially in image generation as well as coding, which is 90% of what I do. I didn't do this just because I was being lazy. I did this specifically because I feel like a lot of people getting into this field these days are very still intimidated by the fact that developers traditionally have gone through 4 years of school and are in a computer science degree and have done all kinds of different things, building and having these big repositories of code. But the barrier of entry is just getting so low these days that I feel like we all have to evolve into these new professionals. Like, it's not going to be you're just a software engineer anymore. You're just a functional consultant. You're just a program manager. Like, you're going to have all of these tools at your fingertips now. So like, being able to learn and being curious is just such a powerful tool these days. Like, again, I spun this particular podcast up within the first 45 minutes of my day, and I just listened to it just right now with you guys, and I found it, very insightful. And like, you can do this all day long, like in the background, drop a big question to Claude, add some groundwork, add some context, and then get this big old long wall of text and then listen to it in the evenings. Like, learn, you could learn literally anything. Like, it has the entire internet at your fingertips. And I want everyone to feel more empowered to learn these days. Like, yes, ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini have made building things a lot quicker and easier, but it also has made learning so much easier and quicker. And being able to do this, like, I love podcasts. Podcasts have been my medium of choice these days for when I have a moment to myself in the car or driving around or listening to my bed. Like, this is what I like to do to unwind. Like, this is a nice way to create these podcasts for yourself to do learning. You don't have to read these big walls of text anymore. You can literally do this. And I didn't do it, but you can hit this join button and literally ask questions to the model that has created this podcast, and it'll on the fly turn it into another question that it's going to stick into this particular chat. So just something to keep in mind for you guys. Again, there's so many tools out there these days, and Workday is not in its own little bubble. Like, everything's going to be Googleable these days. We're putting more and more content out onto YouTube. We're putting more and more content out into the real world that's going to be Googleable, going to be indexable by these AI models, and learning is going to become so much easier and so much quicker. And who knows where the the industry is going with everything, but I feel like being able to pivot and learn and be curious is going to be a superpower. So I just want you guys to use that superpower to the best of your abilities. We only have about 5 minutes left, so I don't want to jump into building my little bot here. I don't feel like we'll get very far with anything, but I really enjoyed this. Prompt engineering is something that I have always kind of had an interest in, but I haven't really delved into it too much. I personally use it kind of like a Google, but I need to start doing these chain engineering. I think I'm pretty good at model choice. Like again, Claude's great, Gemini's great at image generation. If you use ChatGPT still, there's nothing wrong with that. It clearly can still do a vast array of things across the board. But using these different methods of asking particular questions, getting more detail, and actually, it didn't even go into this, but if you use the models to create prompts, to to prompt again, doing that chain of command, being like, create me a prompt to do this particular thing, it will actually be able to create a more in-depth prompt for you that will give you a better outcome as well. And I have done that before. But yeah, these simple little tricks and tips I think are very handy, and AI is just getting started. I feel like everything is moving a mile a minute, and we all need to keep up with the paces. So this was fun. I will get back to our regular scheduled program, diving into our Workday app tomorrow. Thanks for joining, and we will see you guys all tomorrow.